William Montague Cobb, born 19, died 1990, African American anatomist. As an educator, scientist, and civic activist, William Montague Cobb devoted his career to the advancement of African Americans. He taught anatomy and dental students at Howard University over the course of more than 40 years, and he fought for the integration of hospitals and medical societies to provide opportunities for his students when they graduated. He is also considered an important historian of African Americans in medicine, and he often used his scientific knowledge to argue against racist characterizations. Active in many professional societies and civil rights organizations, Cobb was recognized both as a scholar and an aggressive proponent of justice. He is quoted in New Directions as saying, quote, "I'm a seasoned fighter, and the battle never bothered me," unquote. Cobb was a lifelong resident of Washington, D.C., except for a few years spent in college and graduate school. He was born there October 12, 1904, the son of William Elmer and Alexine Montague Cobb. His father was a printer who had moved to Washington from Selma, Alabama in 1899 to work for the government printing office. He later opened his own printing shop. Cobb attended segregated Patterson Elementary School and Dunbar High School in Washington. Dunbar was famous for the high quality of its teaching staff and curriculum and its many notable alumni. He graduated from Dunbar in 1921 and enrolled in Amherst College in Massachusetts. At Amherst, Cobb distinguished himself in scholarship and athletics. He won the Blodgett Scholarship as the outstanding biology student in his class, which allowed him to study embryology the summer after graduation at the Marine Biological Laboratory at Woods Hole, Massachusetts. He was also a successful athlete, winning the intramural cross-country championships 3 times and boxing championships twice. Cobb's career in medical science began in 1925 after he graduated from Amherst and enrolled in the College of Medicine at Howard University in Washington. When he was a senior, he was invited to teach a course in embryology as a result of his summer at Woods Hole, and it was because of this experience that he decided that he would prefer to teach medical science than to practice medicine. After graduation in 1929, he completed his internship at Freeman's Hospital, now Howard University Hospital, and left to study anatomy and physical anthropology at Western Reserve, now Case Western University in Cleveland. His dissertation advisor at Western Reserve was Thomas Wingate Todd, who had collected a large number of human and mammalian skeletons for the university's Hammond Museum of Comparative Anthropology and Anatomy, which inspired Cobb's own collections later at Howard University. Cobb's investigations of skeletons of different races convinced him of the erroneous and worthless arguments of white supremacists who contended that African Americans were mentally inferior, supposedly based on anatomical studies. He published his observations and conclusions in a number of professional journals and in popular magazines. He later analyzed X-ray photographs of Olympic champions of 1936 to show that there were no fundamental differences in bone structure between black and white runners. Cobb received his Ph.D. in 1932 and returned to Howard as an assistant professor of anatomy in the medical school. He was promoted to associate professor in 1934 and professor in 1942. In 1947, he was appointed head of the anatomy department, a position which he held for 22 years. As an educator, Cobb was innovative and inspiring. His unique personality made his anatomy classes memorable. He interjected quotations from the Bible, William Shakespeare, and classic literature into his lectures. He imitated the movements of the embryo in the womb, and occasionally played his violin during dissections in the anatomy laboratory in order to help the students relax. He assembled a varied collection of more than 600 human skeletons, used slides and motion pictures which he produced himself in his courses, and developed a graphic method of teaching anatomy through student drawings. Although 6,000 students received anatomy instruction from Cobb, in 1969 many complained that his course was outdated and did not cover the material of licensing examinations. A struggle ensued, with the students demanding that Cobb relinquish the chair, and the university administration eventually removed Cobb from his post. However, he was immediately appointed the university's first distinguished professor, a position in which he remained until retiring in 1973. Cobb served in a variety of scientific, medical, and civic organizations, and made distinguished contributions to all of them. He was president of the Anthropological Society of Washington and the American Association of Physical Anthropologists, and was council member, vice president, and chair of anthropology of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Cobb vigorously opposed the AAAS convention site of Atlanta in 1955 because of the segregated facilities in that city. He refused to attend the meeting when it was held there, and his pressure led to the adoption in 1956 of an anti-segregation policy for future meetings. Cobb was to obtain the same kind of policy for the American Association of Anatomists in 1958. Cobb was prominent in several medical associations, particularly those whose members were African American. As president of the Medical Chirurgical Society of the District of Columbia, the Medico-Chirurgical Society of the District of Columbia, he successfully fought for the admission of black physicians to the present D.C. General Hospital in 1948 and to the Medical Society of the District of Columbia in 1952. He served the National Medical Association as editor of its journal from 1949 to 1977, and as its president in 1964. He is credited with changing the Journal of the National Medical Association from a modest house organ to an influential medical periodical. He published numerous editorials and articles in this journal, many about the history of medicine, especially biographies of black physicians. He is quoted in Modern Medicine as saying, quote, "Negro physicians have contributed to the health care of the American populace under handicaps which no other segment of the population has had to suffer," unquote. When he was president of the National Medical Association, he testified in Congress in support of Medicare, the only representative of a medical association who actually endorsed the proposed legislation. He was a guest of President Lyndon B. Johnson's the signing of the bill. For many years, Cobb was active in the NAACP. In 1946, on behalf of the NAACP, he wrote, quote, "Medical care and the plight of the Negro," and unquote, and, quote, "progress and portents for the Negro in medicine," unquote, in support of government-financed health care. He served on the board of directors for many years and was national president from 1976 to 1982. The latter position gave Cobb the opportunity to speak on contemporary issues to a wide audience. In 1929, Cobb married Hilda B. Smith, who taught in the Washington schools for over 40 years. They had 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Cobb had a wide circle of friends in the medical community and at Howard University, with whom he spent many pleasant hours. He enjoyed playing the violin, and reading. When he was 77 years old, he made his debut as an actor at the Kennedy Center, playing the role of W.E.B. Du Bois in a production directed by his daughter. Near the end of his active and rewarding life, Cobb was quoted in New Directions as saying, quote, "When I go down, I hope I'll go down still pushing for something in the forward direction," unquote. He died in Washington on November 20th, 1990, at the age of 86. Citations and sources are in the description.